Good evening there, Saints fans. Jayden here. We're getting to the end of the year, which is a little bit sad in a way, but we're here for another quick edition of OPPO View. We are against the Bombers. It's retro round this Saturday afternoon, twilight down at Marvel Stadium. If we remember I think it was round 3 or round 4, we played against the Bombers this year. It was an ugly game. And that's probably giving it a little bit more of a rap than what it should have been. It was disgusting. We kicked ourselves in the foot. We turned the ball over too many times in the defensive half. We sort of should have had the game locked away at halftime, and we didn't, and allowed Essendon to get on top late. And then they nearly kept us in it with their inaccurate kicking, and it was a 4-point thriller. But in terms of a thriller, it was the complete opposite. The form was just absolutely disgusting from both sides. So there's a few things that we need to clean up from that game that I'm going to touch on in a minute, as well as sort of, some key matchups, and two in particular that I think if we can narrow it down and really focus on them, then we should be quite comfortable going into this game. I think Essendon are an okay side. I don't want to say they're a top 4 side because they're definitely not. Will they make finals? Look, it's possible, given where they sit. They've had some good games this year, but are they going to do any damage in finals? I'm happily going to sit here and say no. But in saying that, there's a good chance that we can go out this week and actually, put them to the test and make their, next month a lot harder than what it could be. So it's definitely on us this week. As I mentioned last time out, our clearance work was around the ground, not so bad. Whether they go with both Goldstein and Draper, I think in the last couple of weeks hasn't been working for them. So they may look to go with one or the other, which benefits Marshall. Marshall is an absolute menace inside. And especially if he goes up against the Goldstein, look for him to go forward. He's done it, a couple of times the last couple of weeks where he's tried to push forward and hit the scoreboard. He'll try and exploit that matchup as much as he can. But his contest work inside, he absolutely manhandled West Coast last week. His ability just to grab the ball from the contest and just kick it into the forward 50, I thought was a really good stead for us going forward. So if he can continue to do that and get the forwards the first opportunity, or giving the midfielders a chance to win the ball, then that's going to go a long way. We did get beaten comprehensively in the centre clearances last time against the Bombers. It was 13-7 their way. So we definitely need to bridge that gap. And that's going to come down to, manning the likes of Caldwell and Zach Merritt in particular. That's one player I wanted to touch on. Zach Merritt's been in some really good form this year. They're absolute leader from the front. As well as, him and Sam Durham, who are quite, explosive and can use the ball really well. So I hope Jack Steele does go to Merritt. He did a job last week, I thought, for some part on Harley Reid, but Liam Stocker spent some time on Reid as well. So look for one of those two to spend some time on Merritt. And then just keeping everyone accountable at the contest. You don't want to go into a game where you're thinking, we need to stop him, because then it gets too defensive. But from a contest clearance perspective, you need to hold yourself account. And I thought they did that last week really well. And one person in particular was Zach Jones. I thought his contest work, he didn't try and overdo it. He didn't try and, be too fancy. He played within the limitations, played beyond his limits, got the ball to those that can use it. Sinclair, Naz, Riley Bonner, those type of players through the middle who are actually going to then deliver it to our forward line. And that's what gave us, those opportunities to hit the scoreboard. We did it in patches, hitting the scoreboard 2-3 times in a row. And against a team like Essendon, you need to do that. You can't keep a team like that in a contest by kicking inaccurately. And you need to hit the scoreboard comprehensively and quickly from the start of the game as well. Going back to the last time we versed the Bombers, one player who did absolutely took us apart and ultimately was the X factor, and he's done it for his majority of his career, is Jake Stringer. I think he kicked a goal in the boundary 40 metres out in the last quarter. It might have been close towards the end of the quarter as well, or the end of the game. And that was sort of his little purple patch that he had at the start of the year, where he was just on fire. He had 3 goals, I think 2 of them within the last quarter, last time we versed him. And he has that ability, to really just win the game within a 5-6 minute period. So that's a concern that we do have. We didn't have Jimmy Webster. Jimmy Webster will probably go to him this week. If not, Stocker, who goes back, or possibly a Cal Wilkie, depending on how they want to line up forward. I don't want to touch too much on the lineups because the last couple of weeks I've gone through a whole heap of lists, and it turns out that it comes Thursday night and they are all out injured or omitted. So I don't want to touch too much on who will be playing. But as I mentioned, the key matchups I think for this week are going to be Zach Merritt, whether that's Jack Steele or Liam Stocker. I think Ross will probably have a preference there, but we'll wait to see how that pans out on Saturday. But make sure you keeping him accountable forward half of the ground, and limiting Jake Stringer's impact, as well as limiting how effective he can be within a certain time frame. He is that player that within 5-6 minutes can kick 2 or 3 goals. I think he did it against possibly Collingwood the last time they played, where I think Essendon got the chocolates, and he just had 2 or 3 minutes where he kicked 2 or 3 goals, and just like that, he turns the game on its head. So that's going to be a key matchup. And also Kyle Langford, I think he's definitely been underrated over the last 18 months of his forward ability and what he can do impacting the scoreboard. So it's going to be a big game for Dukes to really keep him on level ground and limiting his impact and making sure we can get the chocolates. But going to Saturday, full of confidence after last week. Essendon's on a little bit of a downward spiral at the moment, and we want to make sure we can continue that for them going forward, but also get a bit more of a form guide for us. I know it's the back end of the season, but as Stocker touched on in his post-game interview last week, teams that really start well at the start of seasons usually finish well at the end of the last season. So there's a clear message from the club that they're willing to go hard and make sure they're not throwing the white flag in. So let's all get down to Marvel Stadium on Saturday. It is retro round. Wear the candy stripes, wear the Stickman Guernseys, and support the boys. And as always, go the Mighty Sainers.